something I've done now. I do it in conferences as well. I mean, I didn't ask you because we did a different one. I have done that 8 out of I call it 8 out of 10. But I say, yeah, give me a mark out of 10, and then write a suggestion what would make it higher. So if you've given 8, just write one thing underneath that would make it a 9, or if you've given 6, what makes it a 7. So it's, but I love that because it's a scoreboard. Also for me, because if I do it at 2 conferences, although it's not completely scientific, I get an idea of how things went. Because I go, well, I've averaged 8 in that one and 7 in that one, so that was probably better. And in the end, I want to know that, and a number is a very good way, and also focuses people's thoughts. And I think people do think that. They walk out of the door. You're going to do it anyway. You're going to walk out of that door going, well, that was an out of 10. You do. Everybody does. You might not say it to people, but I want to know. And get your students to do that. Get the student. After all, you're giving them marks all the time, aren't you?
Yes.
Grades, marks. Turn the tables. As George said, why don't we practice what we preach? Giving all this feedback to people, why don't we ask and receive some ourselves? And not just students, yeah? Why not, if you're interviewing or somebody, or giving them an appraisal, or having a meeting with your colleagues, at the end of the meeting, ask some of these questions, or get them to mark the meeting out of 10, or your handling of it. You've nothing to fear. There's nothing to be afraid of. I mean, I say this because I've been afraid for 20 years, but I don't think I am now.
Do you not find that some of your advice is completely contradictory, though, and exactly opposite? So, you know, you say to people, what would you give them? And everyone says 8 out of 10, and some people say it would be better if it was a little slower, and the other half say it would be better if it was a little faster.
Fantastic. Then I need to know that. That's okay. That just confirms me that my pace was okay. But if 3/4 of them say it was too fast and 1/4 say it was too slow, I know where to move next time. Feedback is always, always good, even if you ignore it. Because in ignoring it, you're making a decision, aren't you? And you're thinking about your lesson. But what you need is some data. And my only concern is if you don't actually ask people, you're kind of just imagining it. You're kind of hallucinating to yourself. Yeah, and the typical thing that will happen after a lesson, I've heard this in the staff room and after conference, how was your talk? Yeah, it was great. Fine. How did it go? Well. How was your lesson? Good. What's the point of that? Okay, it's a social conference, but it's absolutely pointless. It doesn't get anyone anywhere.
But I think what is more important perhaps is to get the criteria. Because, for instance, you said, well, pace is very important.
Yeah.
Because just to get a mark just like that out of the blue, I think it doesn't help. Students have to say why they
Absolutely.
have and it's the same, you know, it's used in class, in our classes in France now. We ask all the other students to give a mark to the student who is doing a speech or a talk, but they have to explain why. It's,
yeah. I think that's great, which is why I would always accompany the 8 out of 10 activity with a and say why. Or one suggestion that would make it a higher mark. Whatever you want to frame it as. Yeah, not just get pieces of paper with a number.
No,
although that's better than nothing. Again, we're getting into the discussion now about how to, the fine print of how to do the feedback. But the important thing is to do something. Even if it's not very good. Even if it's just marks and you go, oh, well, I've just got a load of marks here and I don't know why they gave me a 7. But at least then you might ask them next time. The point is to get going, just do it. Otherwise we could be, you know, we could be here for another, I don't know, does anyone else measure their life in World Cups? I find a year is a bit of an awkward unit, but 4 years I think, well, I should have achieved something or done something by then. And you know, I tend to think how many World Cups I've got left. Because that kind of hurries me up a bit. Because if I think I've got 30 years, it's like, oh, that's ages. So you divide that by 4. Anyone do that? 7? I've possibly only got 7 more World Cups in me on this earth. So, you know, let's get moving. There we go. Getting feedback from students. We've talked about this, haven't we? 3 against 1 is another great one. You just, again, being positive, write down 3 things you really like about the lesson, me, the class, the materials, and 1 suggestion. Sometimes you accompany this with smiley faces and a neutral face. And again, you collect those in. And again, what was the fear? One of the fears of feedback, we said, was this idea of getting the negative. But believe me, and I've done this after conference talks as well, when you pick up that pile of paper and you're reading it on the train, you really appreciate reading all these positive things. even if they say things like, I like your shirt, or the music was good. So it's like they're struggling to find 3 good things. But it doesn't matter, because flattery works, doesn't it? And then you get to the 4th thing, which is the suggestion, or criticism, or whatever it is, and you're ready for it, aren't you? The ground is laid. You're psychologically ready, and you will take it in. And also, the people writing the feedback will be happier doing that. Once they've said 3 nice things about you, they feel, right, I've said 3 nice things about him, I can tell him his shirt is crap now. And it's about building a relationship, isn't it? And in fact, that's what's happening with Chandler and Phoebe, I think. She can say those things because there's a history of her being a good friend. Obviously, with students, you can't have that history, but you just create it in a micro way by saying, write 3 nice things.
Do you think if students might worry that if they give you too much negative feedback, it might change your relationship with them? And you might give them some horrible work to do. I mean, people can think like that. I don't know.
Grade.
You know, grading and, you know.
That's, you're talking about trust there and your relationship with the students, which is probably too big to deal with now. But I don't think that's a reason not to do it. Mm-hmm. Because that will impact on all sorts of things, not just getting feedback. So if that's how your student's feeling about you, then you need to know that, I think. Because it will impact on all sorts of things, including their learning. Hot and cold, hot being when you're in the heat of it, cold being after the class or after the lesson or at the end of the term.
To answer the question,
yes.
You know, at the university, at the American universities, students' evaluations are usually done at the end, but teachers don't have access to them until after the exams, after the final grade exams.
It's the same as in France.
The same.
Yeah.
So this way you avoid that.
We've got 10 minutes left. Here's what we're going to do. This is your homework. You talked already about someone you'd got some feedback from, but make a plan now. Make a promise to yourself. Write it down. Maybe just write down those questions because you haven't got time to think. But you know, George was talking about what do people take away from conferences, what do people do, and he's right. Normally we do nothing. I'm making an attempt to get you to do something. If you like, you can email me about this. I'll be absolutely delighted to receive an email. Because don't worry, I know I'm not going to get 40 emails, so we'll deal with it. But if you want to email about it specifically, that's fine. What do you want to get feedback about? Why? Who from? Where and when? And how will you do it? And then do it, yeah? Make the plan and do it. Why make a plan? Because we make plans for lessons, don't we? But we don't really make plans for conversations. We tend to think we can do that. Oh yeah, I'll have a word with him in the staff room, or I'll catch her after class. We're very light-hearted and we take very lightly the idea of conversations, which I think is a mistake. Given that we spend so much time thinking about lessons and how they are going to happen and what's going to happen in that hour, why don't we plan this 20-minute conversation? It's worth planning. It should be in the right place, at the right time, with the right person and the right questions. Because you don't want to blow it with that, oh, what do you think of, what do you think of me? Or one of those questions that is just going to mess it all up at the beginning. And that's kind of what happens if you don't plan that.